As of this morning, Wednesday the 22nd of July, 2026, the European Union is preparing to accept a fresh wave of American tariffs rather than allow the current transatlantic trade arrangement to collapse into open economic conflict. This is not a minor story buried in the business section. This is one of the most consequential developments in global trade this year, and it is unfolding in real time. The existing framework governing trade between Brussels and Washington was always a temporary fix, designed to buy time while both sides negotiated a permanent agreement. Today, that framework is expiring, and no permanent deal has been agreed. Faced with that reality, EU officials have signaled clearly that they will accept the new terms Washington is demanding rather than let trade relations deteriorate sharply. The question every European business owner, investor, and consumer is asking this morning is simple: what does this mean for prices, for jobs, and for the long-term economic independence of Europe? That is exactly what this video will answer. To understand why today is so significant, it helps to know what the current EU-US trade regime actually is and how it came to exist. Following years of tense tariff disputes and retaliatory trade measures between Washington and Brussels, both sides agreed to a temporary holding framework. This arrangement kept the worst tariff barriers from going up and allowed goods to move relatively freely in both directions while diplomats worked toward a longer-term solution. European industries, from German automotive manufacturers to Italian fashion exporters to Irish pharmaceutical firms, built their business assumptions around the continuation of that arrangement. For several years, those assumptions held. But today the clock has run out. The framework is expiring, and the gap between what Washington demanded and what Brussels was prepared to offer proved too wide to bridge in time. The EU now faces a binary choice: accept whatever terms the United States sets, or watch trading conditions between the two blocs deteriorate sharply. Brussels has made its choice, and it is the one that involves the least immediate disruption. Many viewers will reasonably ask, why is the European Union, one of the largest economic blocs on the planet, choosing to accept American terms rather than push back from a position of collective strength? The answer lies in a combination of economic fragility and political pragmatism. Europe's major economies are under significant strain right now. German industrial output has faced pressure from global competition and elevated energy costs. French growth has been modest. Consumer confidence across much of the continent remains subdued. In that environment, triggering a full-scale transatlantic trade confrontation carries enormous risks, particularly for export-reliant member states whose manufacturers depend on access to American buyers. There is also a clear political calculation at work. Leaders in Berlin, Paris, and Rome are well aware that higher American tariffs on European goods would mean reduced demand, lower revenues for European exporters, and ultimately higher prices for consumers on both sides of the Atlantic. No European government wants to explain that outcome to voters heading into election cycles. The EU's decision to stand down is, in this light, less a show of weakness than a cold-eyed reading of the available options. Today's outcome was not sudden. It is the result of months of negotiations that repeatedly failed to produce the breakthrough both sides publicly claimed to be seeking. Talks between EU trade officials and their American counterparts stalled on several key issues. Digital services taxation was among the most contentious, with Washington pushing back firmly against European measures it viewed as singling out American technology companies. Agricultural market access was another major friction point, with the United States demanding greater openness in European food markets that Brussels was politically unable to deliver given the influence of European farming lobbies. Steel and aluminium duties, a long-running source of bilateral irritation, also remained unresolved. As the deadline approached, the tone in Brussels shifted from cautious optimism to quiet resignation. Officials stopped talking about securing a good deal and began concentrating on avoiding the worst possible outcome. That shift has now become official policy. The EU is not celebrating what has happened today. It is managing the fallout and framing acceptance as pragmatic stability rather than diplomatic failure. For the industries most exposed to transatlantic trade flows, today's development is not an abstract headline. It carries immediate, practical consequences. European exporters selling into the American market, including carmakers, aerospace suppliers, luxury goods producers, and pharmaceutical manufacturers, will face increased costs as their products become subject to higher American import duties. That makes European goods more expensive for American buyers, which typically reduces demand and squeezes profit margins. On the import side, American products entering the European market may also face revised conditions, potentially affecting prices on goods from technology hardware to agricultural commodities. For small and medium-sized businesses operating with thin margins, the effect could be particularly painful. Supply chain economists consistently observe that tariff adjustments of this kind work through the system within weeks, not months. That means the real-world consequences for businesses and consumers could begin showing up on invoices and shop shelves sooner than many people currently expect. This is a live economic story with direct consequences for millions of ordinary Europeans. Beyond the economic calculations, today's outcome is generating significant political turbulence inside the European Union. The European Commission, which holds the exclusive mandate to negotiate trade deals on behalf of all 27 member states, now faces pointed criticism. The central justification for giving Brussels that exclusive negotiating authority has always been collective bargaining power, the idea that 27 countries speaking with one voice carry more weight than any single nation acting alone. Accepting fresh American tariffs without securing clear reciprocal benefits will be used by critics across the political spectrum as evidence that Brussels failed to leverage that power effectively. Eurosceptic movements in multiple member states are already framing today's news as proof that the EU cannot defend European economic interests against determined great power pressure. Governments in Central and Eastern Europe, which tend to prioritize the security alliance with Washington above trade disputes, may privately welcome the avoidance of open conflict. But the industrial heartlands of Germany and France, whose export-dependent economies have the most to lose from punishing tariff regimes, are watching today's developments with considerably less relief. In the immediate term, Brussels will focus its energy on ensuring the new tariff regime is implemented in the least disruptive way possible for the most exposed sectors. Trade lawyers, industry representatives, and government officials are already working to understand the precise scope of the incoming measures and identify any areas where damage can be contained or phased in more gradually. Over the longer term, the European Union faces a deeper strategic question about what kind of trading relationship it wants with the United States. Accepting American tariffs today may buy goodwill in Washington and help preserve the broader diplomatic and security relationship. But it may also signal to future American administrations that European resistance has a ceiling, inviting further pressure in subsequent negotiating rounds. Trade analysts are genuinely divided on how today's outcome will be read in Washington. Some argue it opens the door to a more stable long-term agreement. Others warn it simply establishes a precedent. What is beyond dispute is that the transatlantic trading relationship has entered a more asymmetric phase, with the balance of leverage sitting more clearly on the American side than at any point in recent decades. The European Union bowing to fresh U.S. tariffs on this 22nd of July, 2026 is a moment whose consequences will extend well beyond today's news cycle. It is a reminder that trade policy is never purely economic. It is strategic, political, and bound up with fundamental questions about sovereignty and long-term independence. Whether Brussels has made the right call today depends entirely on what Washington chooses to do next. If acceptance paves the way for a more stable, comprehensive transatlantic trade agreement, then the short-term cost may prove worthwhile. If it simply invites further demands, Europe will have paid a considerable price for very little gain. That is the wager Brussels has made this morning, and it is one that European businesses, workers, and governments will be living with for a long time to come. If this analysis helped you make sense of one of the most important trade stories of 2026, please give the video a like and subscribe to this channel for more in-depth coverage of the events shaping our economic and political world.